Ugh. All right, my lunch is finished. Lunch, dinner thing. I don't know. It's 4 o'clock. I don't care.
I don't know, brunch, supper, whatever.
Just fuck it. Do we need to follow the strict 3-meal structure in society anymore?
That was invented anyway to like standardize the meals for working class families in the Industrial Revolution or whatever.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's the origin of the meal system?
Yes.
Huh.
This
How
is what I've been
fascinating.
told.
I see, the thing is, you say it, and maybe it's just because I know so little, but I believe that.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that you would have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner is the 3 meals thing is sort of a new concept.
Is it mostly just a morning meal, an evening meal, and then like a final meal kind of thing?
I think so. I think in ancient times it would have been like, yeah, you wake up and you eat probably something that was left over from the day before.
Probably something lighter. That way you just need like enough fuel to keep you going, and like a midday thing, and then like.
I do know that like a traditional, like your typical breakfast in a place like say France or something like that, you'd wake up and you'll have like a piece of bread and some coffee, and then just like feel yourself until lunch. Yeah.
That actually seems totally reasonable.
Of course, they also tend to take 1 hour to 2 hour long lunches in France.
Those bastards.
Those lovely people.
I mean, Spaniards take a siesta, so.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with Italy, too, where it's just like, you're having this meal, you just take it easy.
Like, it's fine. The world. I think maybe that's like the existentialist attitude of like, whatever. The world could honestly do without you. So why don't you enjoy a few things here and there?
I mean, and unlike the U.S., a lot of other countries have very strict labor laws about how many hours you're allowed to work per week.
It also comes down to like American exceptionalism, where it's like, no, we're the best because we work the hardest. Like, I don't think that's really how that works.
Even true.
I don't think that's how that works on like at least 5 different levels.
Also, we work ourselves real hard, but we don't work ourselves real hard doing much of anything.
No, we don't work ourselves real hard on anything smart or well, we work ourselves plenty of things on like useful things, but even then, like the average worker isn't technically accomplishing that much. We're just rays of sunshine today. I really think it's by the way, for reference, audience, another cloud of smoke has taken over the entirety of the Washington area again. So, our sun is a giant red ring in the sky straight out of Dark Souls 3.
Yes, we got a giant blood sun in the sky that like is hidden behind a mass of yellow gray cloud.
Yep, and I wake up daily to jackhammer constructions going on outside at a park that isn't anywhere near completed.
Oh, God.
And the fact that they're changing both streets nearby me into 2-way streets when they used to be 1-way means I also have to deal with the honking sounds of cars and traffic, and it's just fucking lovely.
Also, I'd like to point out that my friend Andrew pays a premium for that luxury.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. It's great. It's great. Even then, it's like the cheapo version of the payment for that luxury. God damn it, rent prices here are terrible.
Yep. I mean, yes. I'm not even gonna. I'm not even gonna do the.
But actually,
it could be worse though than San Francisco. It's like no, it's pretty bullshit here.
Pretty fucking bad. All right, should we do this?
Yeah, let's do this.
Excellent.
3, 2, 1. Hi, I'm John.
I'm Andrew.
And this is Agree to Disagree.
So this is
take 2.
Should we explain to the lovely audience what happened to the Simpsons episode?
Yeah, let's give them the quick rundown shimmy shimmy Cocoa Pop version of it.
Wonderful. So yeah, what happened with the Simpsons episode is we recorded it. We actually recorded an excellent intro that both John and I really enjoyed.
Yes.
And about midway through, I noticed a bunch of blinking lights on the recorder and was attempting to point it out to him without like verbal cues, and John later told me, he's like, dude, you should just like told me.
Yeah.
And we ended up having about 38 minutes of a very good intro take to the Simpsons episode and then a whole lot of nothing because the SD card was full.
And then Andrew looked at me and he said, well, you want to do it again? I'm like, fuck no, let's watch the episodes, I'll come back and we'll do it.
And so we just decided, you know what? We love you guys, but the summer has been miserable, and John and I just want to get this done with, even though we do very much enjoy The Simpsons.
Oh, yeah.
And would love to have done it again. It just it was a lot.
Let's make it a one-shot.
Yeah. All right, so our one-shot Simpsons retrospective, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Excellent.
So essentially what we did is I forced Andrew to pick 3 episodes out of a giant laundry list of episodes he had.
Yes, I had, for reference, since obviously you guys haven't seen that episode, John asked me to come up with 3 episodes of The Simpsons. And the way I ended up coming up with episodes is I came up with 3 categories of 3 episodes, and then I pick and chose between those for which ones I would have John watch. And then John spat 3 episodes at me that he wanted me to watch, and then we decided, as a fitting end to the retrospective, we would watch the absolute newest episode of the newest season of The Simpsons as a way of kind of reflecting on whether it was still just as funny as it was, or just as meaningful, I suppose, whatever we were shooting for.
Right. So let's do a quick cover of let's talk about the episodes.
So the episodes you gave me were Marge versus the Monorail.
Yep.
Which is the famous episode about a man who stumbles into Springfield and attempts to have them get a monorail and is like a horrible, shoddy salesman.
And for those of you at home, that's season 4, episode 12.
There's Brother from Another Series, which is the episode with Sideshow Bob, where his brother shows up from out of nowhere and ropes Sideshow Bob into actually working legit for the first time in his life on a dam.
His brother being played by David Hyde Pierce, the brother of Fraser Crane from the series that was also running at the same time.
Which is funny because Kelsey Grammer, the actor who plays Sideshow Bob, is Frasier in the show Frasier, and so it's an inside reference.
Yeah, that is season 8, episode 16.
And then the final one, actually, you'll have to remind me, what was the final one?
Radioactive Man.
Ah, there we go, which is the episode where Radioactive Man, the comic book, ends up having a comic book movie based around it, and they come to Springfield because they're an easy place to get use as a setting, and because they also have a nuclear plant, and Milhouse ends up getting the part of his character, his sidekick, Fallout Boy.
Mm-hmm. That is season 7, episode 2.
And then the episodes I gave you, do you want to give the descriptions?
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right, so the first one you gave me was Mother Simpson, which was that's the episode where, oh my God, my brain shut down. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. It happens.
The first one you gave me was Mother Simpson, which is the episode where Homer fakes his death and his mother comes out of nowhere, who he thought was dead. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that she's not dead. She's just been in hiding from the law for a hippie rebellion that she was involved in the 1960s. That is season 7, episode 8. Then the second one was The Boy Who Knew Too Much, which is an episode where Bart skips out on school and ends up witnessing a crime, and he's the only person who could testify for the innocence of Mayor Quimby's nephew, who is a douchebag, and everyone wants to see him. Everyone wants to see him hang.
I believe that's an actual quote. That's like a direct quote, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a douchebag. And
good shit.
Thank you. That was season 5, episode 20. The interesting thing about that episode is that Bart is afraid to testify because if he does, Principal Skinner will catch him in the act of skipping school and he'll have detention for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Then the third episode is Day of the Jackanapes, which is season 12, episode 13. And Day of the Jackanapes is the episode...
Okay, Krusty quits showbiz.
Krusty quits showbiz. It's a Sideshow Bob episode, and
yeah, because we both chose Sideshow Bob episodes.
Yes, Sideshow Bob gets unhinged when he finds out that Krusty has taped over all of their old episodes together, in effect erasing his history.
Yeah, the master tapes of them. And then Sideshow Bob goes crazy and tries to have him killed.
Yes,
great.
And you know, it's a good classic Sideshow Bob episode. It's got some feelings.
And then Dogtown was the final one that both of us watched, which was a suggestion from neither of us, but is the most recent episode of The Simpsons, which is about...
It's about old Gil finally gets his chance. He gets hit by Homer Simpson's car because Homer didn't want to run over a dog. Well, unfortunately for old Gil, people love dogs more than they love him. So he loses, and then Springfield turns itself into the most dog-friendly town in the United States, and then the dogs realize there is no alpha, and they take over.
Yep. All right, so let's get into the actual discussion then, I suppose. Marge versus the Monorail. I fucking forgot how funny this episode is.
Yes, in Marge versus the Monorail, one of the things that I really like about that episode is that, well, first of all, it's a whole musical number.
Monorail.
Yeah. Monorail. Monorail.
Mono. Don't.
Yeah.
It's good shit.
Written by Conan O'Brien, and it is the first guest star appearance of Leonard Nimoy.
Yes. Oh God. Yeah. Nimoy shows up in way too much of the series.
He shows up in this episode seemingly out of nowhere.
Yep. Which I believe we explained in the previous episode. Apparently, they were trying to get someone else, and then Nimoy was just like, "I'll do it."
Yeah. So
that's what it was. I remember the story. It was they tried to get Shatner, but they couldn't get Shatner because his costs were too much.
No. Well, Shatner had flat out turned them down before for guest appearances, but they were trying to get
Sulu,
yes.
But he wouldn't do it because he was involved in a public transportation initiative in California and didn't want to put a bad light on public transportation.
Exactly.
And then instead they're like, all right, well we can't get George Takei. Let's just get Leonard Nimoy. And Nimoy was in his phase of like trying to get away from being Spock, so he's just like, sure.
Yeah, he was back in the phase where it's like, you know what, acting job, sure, why not?
Yeah. And so Spock is just randomly in this.
Yep.
Which is really funny and a pretty good recurring gag.
He does have I think the best line in the movie, in the episode. He's got one of the coolest lines where the monorail has gone completely out of control, and Krusty is trying to jump out of it. He's like, "This is my stop," and then Leonard Nimoy reaches out the open door when Krusty jumps and drags him back in. And he says, "No, the world needs laughter."
And he says it so seriously that it's amazing. My other favorite line from Nimoy still has to be the what is it when they realize that, oh wait, what if we just cut the power? And they're like, oh no, it's solar powered. And then a solar eclipse randomly happens out of nowhere. And Leonard Nimoy is looking out the window, is like, ah yes, a solar eclipse. The cosmic ballet continues. Guy next to him is like, did anyone want to sit next to this weirdo?
Also, in this episode, they mention 3 different DC characters. So when what's his face, who's trying to sell the monorail to the town,
the Music Man, basically.
Yeah, he becomes the most popular person in Springfield during the creation of the monorail, and he visits Lisa and Bart's elementary school, right. Springfield Elementary, and a kid had asked if the monorail was faster than Superman.
Yes.
And he goes, "You betcha," or something like that. Or if the monorail could move faster,
outrun
Superman. And then the next question is a kid asking if Superman could outrun the Flash.
And then the Music Man's just like,
sure,
why not?
And then towards the end of the episode, when Marge gets one of the scientists who constructed the monorail for another town, Marge says, "I've got someone who can help you." And he's like, "Batman?" And she's like, "No, it's a scientist." Batman's a scientist.
It's not Batman. Oh, it's another. Oh my god, this episode's so quotable. It's just such classic. The thing is, this episode takes on a life of its own in like Simpsons mythology. Like it's just such a good, classic, solid, quotable episode. I wouldn't call it exceptional. I don't think it's like the funniest thing of The Simpsons I've ever watched. It's personally not the funniest one to me, but it's just so good.
I'd also like to point out that a significant chunk of the episodes we watched had Rainier Wolfcastle in them.
That's really weird.
Rainier Wolfcastle made a lot of appearances in our 6 episodes.
Rainier Wolfcastle's a very funny character.
Yeah, and so the funny, like for me, one of the interesting things was that there was a moment where there was in one of the episodes he's just it's the boy who knew too much.
Yes,
he's just a star at the party. He's just a famous person.
Hey, it's Rainier Wolfcastle.
Yeah.
Hey, Rainier, hey, Mr. Wolfcastle, your last movie sucked.
I know.
There were scripting problems from day one. Hey, you can say that again. Maria, that was like something like, my muscles are so sad, let's leave, or something.
Yeah.
Like that. Something of that variety. It's just hilarious.
And then, of course, he's a star in Radioactive Man.
Yep. Which is, if you want to do the classic line.
And then
John Proptiggy.
Oh yeah,
the classic line.
The classic line. The goggles, they do nothing. And he's being flushed away by acid, and
By
Milhouse
acid.
has disappeared.
Yep.
All right, so we're kind of all over the place. Right now.
Episode 2 that you gave me, which was Brother from Another Series. God damn it! I just love every Sideshow Bob episode.
So the great thing about this episode is that Sideshow Bob has actually tried to turn over a new leaf. He's a reformed man, and he is trying to do right. And
the only one who doesn't believe him is Bart.
Yes, the only one who just flat out is trying to incriminate him is Bart, and he ropes Lisa into it. And they're trying to figure out what Bob is up to. He's up to nothing. He's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. It turns out his brother is trying to screw him over.
Trying to frame him
and embezzle a couple $1 million and sneak away to like Cuba or Bermuda or something like that. And then flood Springfield in the process.
Yep.
So
no, it's hilarious. I would say the thing that seals it has got to be the banter between Sideshow Bob and Cecil. It's just some of the best quality, just snarky dialogue that you can find on The Simpsons. Like, it's so different from the normal the normal back and forths are really funny, but it's just so very, because I never watched Frasier. Is Frasier like that as a series?
That is 100% what Frasier is. 90% of Frasier is just back and forth banter between those two characters.
Yeah, it makes for a very entertaining thing, because it's like there are these two very intelligent British men that are now dealing with the slapsticky, ridiculous town of Springfield, and it's just such a baffling combination that it makes it really, like, there's a random Bordeaux joke at the beginning of it when he heads over. It's like, well, which one would you like paired, like a 1928 Bordeaux or like this other thing? It's like, I just want something that wasn't brewed that doesn't taste like it was fermented and brewed in a toilet. There's a pause.
Yeah.
That would be the 28 Bordeaux then. And it's so bizarre to have that kind of humor mixed in with the normal Simpsons fare that it's just absolutely hilarious.
100%.
All right. Radioactive Man.
Radioactive Man. Radioactive Man. It's just a classic episode. This episode's always been special to me because when I was a kid, I acquired Radioactive Man #1.
Like the actual hard copy, right?
Released by Bongo Comics. Like I still have this floating around somewhere in plastic seal.
Bound to be worth something
not
nowadays.
Sealed, but plastic protector.
Bound to be worth something.
Maybe. It was never about it being worth something to me. It was always just like, I thought this was a cool character, and I love The Simpsons, and it's a fun tie-in between the way Hollywood and superhero movies were and still are made.
Yeah, and it's The Simpsons version of Superman. It's pretty fantastic, and it's also, as you said, it's a weird look at like the concept of superhero movies before the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's really hard to get out from underneath that shadow nowadays.
Also, they do what The Simpsons is always really great at doing, which is taking the concept and turning it on its side. So rather than Hollywood changing a small town and turning it against itself, like the whole Sundance kind of thing, or where you have this movie production moves into town and suddenly everyone in this town is terrible. It turns out that the people from Hollywood are pretty innocent, and it's all Springfield that really sucks, and they like leech them dry of all of their money for the production, and then they're flat broke and have to go back to Hollywood.
And then they get lectured by Mickey Rooney at the end, and are like comforted by a bunch of Hollywood snobs when they go back to, which, like, fair enough. Springfield is established by this point in the series as being a pretty fuck awful place.
We have a new tax against poofy director pants.
But I don't wear poofy director pants.
It's a tax for people who don't wear them. Oh, that's what I think I realized watching all the Simpsons. There's the iconic Simpsons. Like, that happens a lot.
I still love Sideshow Bob's with the rakes. Just
yes. I mean, his is iconic, but like all the characters do it at some point.
There was a lot of sarcastic or like disappointed mumbling. I mean, Marge's is still got to be the best.
All right, so
next up,
Mother Simpson. Mother Simpson was like, it's a good heartfelt story. It's one of the first times that they really go into fleshing out what Homer's childhood was like. Yeah. They didn't really do a lot of that before then. Like, there were like glimpses for a joke, but this is like one of the first
like
times
real
that
expansions on it. Yeah.
Yeah, like like that. This is what Homer's mom's life was like. This is what Homer's childhood was like. He had a mother who loved him very much, and Abe sucks. Abe
is just the worst.
Abraham Simpson is the epitome of the worst father.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, is it? It's implied, because I mean, it's implied in other episodes that he's like a World War II vet, and he probably married her once he got back, and so she's like this rebellious 60s like young mother, and like Abe is just a very broken down, like kind of just mostly existentially bored World War II vet that like just doesn't know what he's doing with his life. And then they produced Homer, who is an adorable child.
One of my favorite moments from this episode is when Homer is talking about his mom being deceased, and he points at the grave on the hill, and the guy at the records office says, maybe you should go up there. And he goes up there, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, Mom, I should have visited more often. He's scraping the ivy off the grave, and it's Walt Whitman. He's like, Walt Whitman? I hate you! And he just jumps up and kicks the grave.
I think he's like screaming, damn you, Walt Whitman, with each like pause being punctuated by him like punting the gravestone. My favorite moment from this episode still has to be when he's talking to his mom after having fished himself out of his own open grave, and he's realizing what's going on, and he's just like, I don't know what to say, and his mom's just like, let's just enjoy this moment. Mom, I don't know if you knew, I'm really bad at ruining moments. Just pause. Pelican lands on his head, drops a fish in his pants. He just kind of looks down and disappointed. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. She's like, it's okay, Homer. It wasn't your fault.
I just love that. That is the weirdest sight gag, to be like, why is there a pelican there? I don't know. Shut up. It's funny. All right. Second episode I gave you was
The Boy Who Knew Too Much.
What do you think?
So in The Boy Who Knew Too Much, it's a good episode. It's a little unique because although I don't know, I feel like The Boy Who Knew Too Much, even though it's one of the oldest episodes we watched, it still has kind of like the sort of vibe that you'd get from a more modern Simpsons, where it's just sort of like a monster of the week kind of feel.
Yeah,
you know, where there's no through plot thread, because a lot of the other episodes we watched tied up to other things.
Yeah, it was like expanding on background stories or expanding on the universe, whereas Boy Who Knew Too Much is very much a like one shot almost.
Yes, it is. It is very much just a Bart doesn't want to go to school, and then the repercussions of that.
Right. Yeah, and then things happen.
Yeah, and then something happens. do.
I personally adore this episode. This was I think one of the ones I gave you that was in a category of like, I can sit down and watch this episode anytime and find it hilarious. And like, I think Springfield Files was also included on that one. There are just so many moments that stand out to me of just being very outwardly hilarious lines, or weird moments like they're getting picked up in the prison bus, and then Otto like yells at them to get inside, and they're like, Otto, oh yeah, sorry, me and this bus have a kind of shining thing going on right now.
There's also there's a line that I thought was more relevant now than it was when the show came out.
Which one was that?
Kent Brockman on the news is talking about the incident, and I can't remember what they actually called it, but he's like, I suggested...
Beat up waiter.
Yeah, beat up waiter. And he's like, I suggested Waitergate, but no, they didn't want to listen to me. And it's like, oh man, that was back before everything was something gate.
Yeah.
Like, everything is something gate now. Like, it's
an overused trope.
Yes, but at the time that this episode was made, it was not.
Oh god, the Meow Mix moment still just makes me laugh way too hard.
I know what you're thinking, Bart. Or I know you can hear me thinking, Bart. And if and when I catch you, you're going to get, what is it? Your ass is mine.
Yes, I think in words I would never say. I know you can hear my thoughts too, boy. Meow 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 meow. It's just such an irrelevant, funny joke, but it just makes sense as a Homer Simpson joke.
Well, the way that episode's cut, that's also like the joke right before the commercial break. So it's like
oh shit, it is.
That's like the last thing you see before Ford trucks, Chevy Truckman, blah blah blah.
Is Homer Simpson staring at you with very wide eyes, being like, "I know you can hear me." No, it's a very bizarre episode. It was also, I think, the first one where they had tried to do like a larger crime thriller kind of plot. I think it was proto Who Shot Mr. Burns.
If it wasn't before,
it was definitely pre Who Shot Mr. Burns. I mean, it was like the prototype of it. Like they kind of stole elements of this and like the mystery elements and decided to use that in Who Shot Mr. Burns.
Fair enough.
Final episode I gave you was Day of the Jackanapes.
Day of the Jackanapes is just, it's a really touching episode. There was, I wrote down a note, excuse me, and I can't remember what it means anymore.
I might remember what it means. Just read it.
I think ellipsis, stale, repetitive. No, but that's a quote from the episode that made me laugh, and I don't remember what it was anymore.
Oh, God. What was it? I can't remember.
But so the thing that I liked about this episode the most was that when Sideshow Bob shows up, he's got this whole plan crafted, and he's got Bart cornered in the sport shed,
the old sports shed that's probably haunted.
And then there's a moment where he's like, "Hello, Bart." And he's like, "Oh, hey, Bob." And he's like, "Aren't you terrified?" He's like, "No. Like, we do this all the time. You know, we're 0-6.
No, it was every time we tango, you go to jail.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm 6-0.
Yeah, he's like, yeah.
Well, this time I can't lose. He gets hit with a rake.
Yeah.
Rakes, my arch nemesis. I thought I was your arch nemesis. I have a life outside of you, Bart.
Thank you for you're so much better at quoting than me. Fantastic.
I've memorized huge chunks of this show.
But yeah, it's a great episode. You got Krusty is retiring for like what, the 6th time?
Yeah, something like that. It's because of like TV network notes.
Yes. He loses his mind because he's sick of the ratings people or whoever giving
the TV execs.
The TV executives giving him notes constantly, and it boils over when they try to give him notes on camera while he's trying to do a bit. He's just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm over it. And then he puts together this whole elaborate, last show. And it's just a good episode. You got, I don't know. Every Sideshow Bob episode is a fun, unique episode. And every time they would bring him back, those were always my favorite episodes.
Yeah, Cape Fear is good. Day of the Jackanapes. Sideshow Bob's Last Gleaming. Sideshow Bob Roberts, where he runs for mayor, which is pretty priceless. God, yeah, the one you gave me, Brother from Another Series. Like, there's just some good stuff in there. Cape Fear is still probably arguably the best one.
I can't remember if it was Day of the Jackanapes or if it was Brother from Another Series. But there's this great line that Reverend Lovejoy has where he says, "I don't know, can we trust him? I mean, he did run for mayor."
No. That's definitely a Brother from Another Series line, because they were trying to figure out whether to let him go or not. And they're like, well, he did run for mayor. It's like, oh, I'll be fine.
No, so what do you think about Day of the Jackanapes? Obviously, you love it.
I love that one. It was definitely between that and Cape Fear of my top Sideshow Bob episodes. I don't know why. I just think the jokes in this one, for some reason, they just hit harder. Cape Fear is like a good episode conceptually. Like it's very tight. It's tied through. Day of the Jackanapes, the highs are way higher. Like, what was it? The one where he's finally hypnotized Bart and is having him beat up a Krusty statue in front of a Krusty Burger with a
work the groin.
And then he has, like, Cletus just take a photo of him, and then the police are sitting in there at the Krusty Burger eating, and is like, hey, Chief, you should probably take a look outside. And it's just Bart beating the shit out of a Krusty monument, and Sideshow Bob openly yelling, yes, kill Krusty, like you'll kill him tomorrow night.
And then Chief Wiggum just looks over and goes like, oh, it's so nice to see a kid using a wooden bat.
Not those aluminum ones. And then the final thing before the commercial break, and I remember this one, is them just looking at them as Bart is bashing the remains, and Sideshow Bob just has the craziest look on his face, just It's like, that's amazing. That is one of my favorite, I think one of my favorite jokes in The Simpsons has got to be consistently how completely incompetent the police department is.
Oh yeah. Like, and it's only gotten better. Like, initially when they created the show, Chief Wiggum wasn't Ralph's dad, and that was like retconned in.
But it's so perfect.
Yeah. It's just like it's the perfect match, and then they gave like it's just.
No,
it's perfect.
The chief's amazing. The entire police department is consistently one of the funniest things. I remember another gag from an episode I didn't give you, which is the computer war menace shoes, which is where Homer ends up on like some island after becoming like a muckraker and accidentally discovering that flu vaccines are like mind control. It's stupid, but regardless, Homer ends up on this weird island and they're trying to find him, and the police department gives him his shoes to smell, and a dog his shoes to smell, and the dog just runs off and like starts swimming, and they're like, all right, I guess we'll give him a couple of days, and he starts like dog starts drowning because he's in open ocean, and I'm like, oh well, all right, I mean, go get him. And then the African American officer, I can't remember his name. Lou's just like, all right, Chief, and he like starts taking off his shoes and is like going to go in and get the dog. And Chief Wiggum's like, Lou, the shoes are part of the uniform, right, Chief? And he just like walks into the ocean. And for some reason, that's amazing to me, and I don't know why. But the police department is just the funniest thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's the episode where Mr. Burns' car is gone. His car is. I don't even remember the episode or what the rest of the plot was, but they have the security device connected to Mr. Burns' car. It's like, now we'll track it using this. Then he presses the supercomputer button. It's just like, car gone. It's like, yes, machine computer. But where is car? Car gone.
Or Homer versus the 18th Amendment, where they're like okay with bootlegging for the longest time until the new guy shows up. There's such good shit there.
Yes.
All right, Dogtown.
Okay, we sat down to watch the most recent episode, which was the season finale of the 28th season of The Simpsons.
And the idea behind this was working as a compare-contrast to the episodes that we remember loving when we were kids, or just we remember loving in general, and then watching the brand new one to see whether the kind of old adage at this point that The Simpsons used to be good still holds up.
Now, and here is the way I feel after having watched that. I watched that episode, and then I continued to watch every single episode in that season. If that's not praise for the Simpsons, then I don't know what is.
So wait, you watched the entire 28th season?
Yes, in one day.
Oh my god!
And in like only getting up to use the bathroom and make food.
Oh my gosh, man!
I watched every single episode. There's like 20 episodes in the season, something like that.
Yeah.
I watched every single one, and like the conclusion I've come to after exhaustive research is that it's just as funny as it always has been. The only major difference is that it now makes a lot of self-referential humor mixed in with all of the other humor.
See, now that in that aspect, I can see how that would be frustrating for people to be able to get into at season 28, is if you don't get all the references, it's not really as funny. It reminds me a lot of, like, there are certain anime that have run for forever, where it's like, if you don't start at point 1 and dig through 500 episodes of nonsense, you're not going to understand what the hell's going on.
But here's the thing, as a person who stopped watching The Simpsons sometime around like season 12 or 15 or something like that, it's now been over 10 seasons since I've actually watched The Simpsons, except for maybe picking up an episode here and there.
Sure.
Having watched that, I still really enjoyed all the episodes. And there was a great moment in Dogtown where there's Bart and Lisa are chased up a tree by all the dogs, right?
Yeah.
And there's a cutaway to the whole field full of dogs, and there was Willie was in among them because Willie became one of the dogs because they accept him for who he is.
That was really funny.
But then also just to the right of Willie, or on the screen to the left of him, is Poochie the dog, which is a itchy and scratchy character that was invented in like season 10 or something like that. And it's just him sitting there like swinging nunchucks around, watching them up the tree like he's going to get them. It's like, why? No reason, just because.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah. There was also another episode, like, you start also noticing that, like, it's not in every episode, but it's like they still do the El Bardo joke. Like,
oh really?
And so if for people who don't know,
graffiti.
Yeah, just random El Bardo graffiti will be on like the courthouse or on a wall somewhere. You occasionally see Bart actually do it. There's an episode where they go to Mexico, and I think it was Mexico anyway. I believe it was Mexico, yes. And on the wall, instead of writing El Bardo, he just writes the Bart.
Solid.
Yeah.
I don't know. I remember I watched Dogtown, and I do remember enjoying it. I don't think I was as dedicated to it as you. I didn't end up like going through the other series. Mainly, it's because I don't know. The thing is, like, I can't put it down to like, oh, this is like, I've watched this many episodes of the new series, like it's trash. Like, I haven't touched anything since like probably episode 15, and I think I remember what started getting to me was the amount of cameos that started getting to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, it's not even that, because we were talking about the Leonard Nimoy thing and like why that was like funny and perfect for its time, but I don't know why. But for some reason, the modern cameos seem to really mess with me, or at least it used to when I was attempting to watch the series still regularly. And I think it was because those things became such a normal part of the plot, like almost as if The Simpsons had finally owned its iconography as being a pop culture icon. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, that just seemed to bug me.
I think that there's a certain point where it's like now being a guest star or a guest appearance on The Simpsons is sort of like popping into Saturday Night Live or something along those lines, where it's I've never been a huge fan of contemporary Saturday Night Live. I like a lot of the older episodes, like from before we were born.
Fair enough.
Like, the original cast is fantastic. You should watch it sometime. It's,
like the Belushi stuff or what have you.
Yeah, that stuff's all great. But the at this point, it's just sort of like you just show up on there because it's so iconic to be on there.
Yeah, it's less an earned thing or the producers going out of their way, and more just like one of those necessary stops almost.
One of the episodes in the newest season, The Simpsons moved to Boston. And it ends up being that Homer tries to take them there for a hatecation because he hates Boston.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
It's great. But then while they're there, they actually kind of fall in love with the town and move there. And Bart's excited because he loves the movie The Departed and all that. And he wants to be like a South End hooligan kind of thing. And then he shows up there, and Lisa ends up falling in love with the town because it's full of colleges and intelligent people.
This is really good, actually. I like that.
Like, so she falls in love and doesn't want to leave, and then Bart realizes that the movie version of Boston isn't at all what Boston's like, and so he immediately hates it.
Yeah,
and then they end up moving back to Springfield.
That reminds me a lot of the New York episode, which might be one of my favorites too, where Homer like desperately hates New York City, but like his entire family ends up loving it, and is like, because like in a drunken bender, like Barney ends up parking his car in between the two towers.
Yep, and
it's like, all right, I guess just fuck it. It's between the two towers. Fine. Yeah. Why not? That's funny.
And then like that also when Homer's trying to get his car off the property, there's a boot on his car.
Yep.
And he gets hungry, and there's a guy pushing a cart that's just selling Club Cloche.
Club Cloche.
Which ends up being a running gag in the series. Occasionally that guy will show up again. But so Homer eats it and hates it but loves it. He eats a bunch of it. And then
drinks a bunch of crab juice.
Right. The joke there is that he is extremely thirsty and asks the guy at the cart if he has anything to drink. He's like, Mountain Dew or crab juice. Yeah. And Homer's like, I'll take the crab juice.
Which is still funny. God. Anyway, no, but I don't know, because you clearly, and you enjoyed watching series 28. Then, right?
Yes, yeah.
Season 28.
No, it was a nightmare. I laid on my couch for 10 hours watching The Simpsons.
No, so, all right, so you genuinely enjoyed, like, watching through it, which is, I don't know, I guess that maybe it doesn't seem surprising, but it does seem to fight that, like, conceptual idea of, like, modern day Simpsons being, like, so different, man. Like, I don't know why. I never thought that was the case anyway, but I just never felt the motivation to go watch the new stuff. Maybe it's because it's so nostalgic for me that I'm okay feeding that nostalgia and watching the older episodes and being like, right, I watch the episodes that I know I end up loving. Like, I'll sit down and watch The Boy Who Knew Too Much or The Springfield Files or Mother Simpson or, like, something where I'm like, right, I know these episodes. These are the episodes I enjoy. So I just don't go out seeking the newer stuff. Maybe it is worthwhile to do that.
No,
maybe that's a lesson for culture right there.
Well, here's the interesting thing about The Simpsons. Since it's been going on so long, there's like over 600 episodes now.
It's insane, yeah.
Then, in fact, their 600th episode, I believe, was the Halloween special of that year. Of
that's
this year.
Really perfect.
Yeah, so the 28th season Halloween special was episode 600.
You mean will be episode 600?
It was.
Oh, of last year, you mean?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Because the new season actually starts October 1st.
Oh, okay.
I know that because after watching all those episodes before, it's like, The Simpsons will return October 1st.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hulu.
Sounds about right. Well, okay, so, yeah, continue.
We started doing this just because we thought it would be fun to do. But it turns out it's kind of relevant right now that we bring up The Simpsons because they just fired Alf Clausen.
He was the guy who was the composer for the show for a long period of time.
A lot of people don't know this, but every single episode of The Simpsons from like 1990 or 91 until now has been orchestrated.
He created the iconic theme. Right?
That's Danny Elfman.
Okay, that is Elfman.
But they did still have a sound composer on staff for every single episode who did all the sound cues and everything. It was always done with a 35-piece orchestra. Like,
are you kidding?
This was back.
I had no idea.
Matt Groening was in full support of this and fought for it and got it, and it's been that way since the beginning of the 90s.
That's incredible.
And Fox finally put their foot down, and in order to save money for the show, they fired Alf Clausen. The note, according to an interview with Variety, Alf Clausen says that they're seeking, and I quote, a different kind of music.
Oh, fuck you, Fox.
So what that tells me is that Fox looked at costs that they can get away with, and it's not one of the stars of the show. So what they decided to do instead was cut out the sound guy, because you could probably equate a similar effect nowadays with like one sound engineer and a copy of GarageBand.
Yeah,
it's not going to be the same thing.
Not the same.
It's not the same. I'm not saying it is, but from a business perspective, from Fox's point of view, I get it, but it still fucking sucks.
Yeah, that's lame.
Like,
I've always, by the way, you'll find this interesting. I've always held that the downfall of cable television will happen when The Simpsons finally goes off air. My general opinion has always been that streaming will win when The Simpsons finally goes.
Now, I think that that's an interesting opinion to have, especially, like, I don't think you're wrong, but The Simpsons and Fox has always been like a regular network station, it's not a cable station.
Oh, no,
but you're absolutely correct, because viewership of The Simpsons is a good indicator for how many people are actually watching TV, and no one uses an antenna anymore.
No one actually uses that.
Which is a shame,
because you have a cable box, and you have 200 channels that you don't actually watch.
And the funny thing is, most of the channels you do watch, you can get from an antenna.
Or you could just use a streaming service like, modern society with a decent internet connection. But I've always held that as a philosophy, is that a great indicator of where television is at is what are the ratings on The Simpsons. If they're doing poorly, sales are probably doing terribly, and cable's probably doing poorly as an idea. But once The Simpsons finally is out, streaming has won, and cable is just going down in flames. I don't know if that's even correct. I can be proven wrong on so many different accounts, but that is a personal idea I've had for a long period of time.
Now, which of these things do you think will die off first? FM radio or cable television?
Ooh. Probably television.
You think television?
Yeah.
Probably because it's way more expensive.
Yeah, and FM radio you can always have, and like FM radio is useful in the way of like you will always have that on a car.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of thing that I doubt is going anywhere, whereas you can't get television. Look, put this way, you don't get the audience that you get with FM radio. Everyone will inevitably spend part of their day trapped in a vehicle. Not everyone is going to sit down in front of their television and actually watch TV.
Fair.
Yeah. But anyway, no, I don't know. The Simpsons is... All right, what do you think? Having rewatched all of those episodes, Simpsons still as good as you remember it?
Yes. I think there's some parts of it that are more campy than others. But I found that the family of The Simpsons, like the actual Simpson family, is still my favorite part of that show. And the dynamic, the way that they work, even some of the more tired parts, where it's like, oh, Marge and Homer's marriage is always on the brink of failing.
Yep.
Like, that gets a little tired.
Yep.
But they still end up doing interesting things with it.
I've always said this: The Simpsons is a shockingly heartwarming show when you break it down to its component parts. If you treat it rather than as a continuum, but like a day-to-day sort of thing, The Simpsons is always like a continuous, heartwarming show. Like, despite all of their grievances and all of their frustrations with each other, they're in the end a family, and they all know that about themselves. Like, Marge, despite all complaints, knows that Homer is a good-meaning guy, and Homer, despite all of his complaints about Marge's nagging, knows that she's trying to make him a better person. Bart loves Lisa, even though, like, he hates her nerdiness, and Lisa loves Bart, even though she hates that he's a reckless psychopath. And Homer loves all of their children. And then there's Maggie, who loves all of them because she's an adorable, 1-year-old child.
There was also one other thing I wanted to mention before I forget again. Season 28, there's a lot of Mr. Burns-centric episodes, which makes me think that there's kind of like the writers find him to be a more interesting character at this point to explore than anyone else.
Burns has always been funny. I don't think I've ever found him to be, like, not a funny character.
Like, for instance, okay, let me list off some. There's an episode where Mr. Burns... is trying to deal with his childhood trauma of being laughed off stage at the Springfield Bowl. So he's trying to put on another talent show, and you get an interesting look into his psyche.
Okay.
There's another episode where Mr. Burns hires all the Simpson family, except for Homer, to be virtual counterparts, so he can live sort of like an Oculus Rift virtual family to see what it would be like if he had a family.
Oh, poor Mr. Burns.
There's ultimately he decides he hates it.
Yeah, of course he does.
There's another episode where Mr. Burns tries to be young and hip again and tries to throw a party at his summer estate, and then it ends up being like guest starred by a shit ton of rappers, and like he gets completely tricked by one of them, and like the whole thing ends up being like this guy actually is like Mr. Burns' hugest fan. He's had his book ever since he was a kid, and like he's become such a ruthless businessman specifically because of Mr. Burns. And it's like, that's just 3 of the episodes.
That's really interesting.
There's a lot more of Mr. Burns in new episodes in this season than there was in every other season I remember growing up. Like, he was always an interesting character, but I feel like that they're focusing more on him now.
Well, let's close this out. Before we talk about the next episode, I want to do a quick Simpsons rapid fire.
Okay.
Favorite couch gag?
Ooh. My favorite couch gag actually was one that you did not see. It was they get into the house and the painting is missing from above the couch. Mm-hmm. And Homer's like, what the hell? Where'd the painting go? And they're like, oh, it tied the room together. And Lisa's reaction was like, oh yeah, that kitschy sophomore-ish piece of crap art really tied the room together. Whatever will we do? And then Bart's like, I don't know what happened to it. Who could have taken it? Maybe someone stole it and sold it on Craigslist. And then Homer's like, maybe it's in one of these other animations. And then it cuts to a 3/4 perspective. And then he crosses through a fake South Park scene. He's like, have you seen a painting? And all the children start like screaming and swearing. And he's like, ugh. And he runs through, and then it cuts to Robot Chicken. And then you realize that, this is done by Robot Chicken because it's the nerd guy. And he's like, oh wow, you're just in time. I just got the final piece for my collection. Look, it's the official painting from above the couch. Oh my god! And then Homer. Really, and then there's
I really like that.
There's another part in the middle where the California Raisins are there playing music.
Oh god!
And Homer accidentally murders all of them.
Yeah, the California Raisins also show up multiple times in this series, and I don't know why. The California Raisins Christmas special that occurs in an episode of The Simpsons has got to be one of the weirdest things I've ever seen.
So yeah, it's one of the more long, elaborate ones that they're doing nowadays for the couch gags. Yeah. But like, I'm glad that they're finally doing some. Ever since they revamped the opening to The Simpsons, they've just done so much more to explore and do like one-time gags with it.
Right. Like, my favorite is still got to be, going back to one of the classics, has got to be they all run in, there's a psychiatrist sitting in the lounge chair, and then Homer beats them all to it, lies down, just, oh god, doctor, I'm crazy, and then just hard cut to the credits.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's great. No,
as far as like the short gags, yes, that one's fantastic.
2, favorite Simpsons side character.
Favorite Simpsons side character is probably shit.
Non-Simpsons
Otto.
member. Otto's really.
I love
goddamn
Otto
funny.
because they don't overuse him, and whenever he is in there, it's like it'll be like something bad happens, but then he'll think it's radical or something, or something like
Or the Shining joke,
Yeah.
like stuff like that.
or him racing slot cars and then just going around the track real fast, and then his bus crashes into a wall. It's like cool.
I actually really like Principal Skinner. I love his like weird combination of like war hero / like what's his name from Psycho aesthetic. It's really funny. Makes for some of the best like random one-off jokes. Like the one where he starts dating Edna is one of the best. There's some really good stuff in there. All right, favorite Simpsons family member. And that it can include mom or grandpa.
My favorite Simpsons family member is probably, I'm gonna say Abe. Abe is my favorite. Abraham Simpson, because he's usually the butt of the joke.
Actually, speaking of being butt of the joke, from Mother Simpsons, still gotta be one of the best where they're making fun of him, and even they all start laughing, and even he's laughing, and it cuts back to him. I'm a living joke.
No, and like he still has some touching moments. There's this
Yeah. There's some touching episodes. I mean, the episode with him and Bart where it's like a grumbling Abe Simpson and his grandson, The Curse of the Flying Hellfish, might be one of the best.
Yeah.
Where it's him and Burns trying to figure out who owns all those Nazi portraits that they stole.
Oh, it wasn't Mexico. It was Cuba. They went to Cuba.
Oh, there you go.
They go to Cuba because Abe thinks he's going to die and they can't afford any medical treatments in the U.S.
Oh, God, so they go to Cuba?
They take him to Cuba and to get him treated, and it turns out the doctors there can't do anything either. They're like, no, there's nothing we can do. And then what ends up curing him is he sees like a 1940s Chevy, and he takes a ride, and he's like, "Oh, I feel young and."
Oh my
and then
God.
that's
great.
But there's a whole subplot there with him feeling young again, and then ending up being a patsy for the CIA. It's really good.
Oh man, I might want to go with Homer just off of like, it's a bit obvious, but he is consistently still, and I think it's for me, for someone who loves like Monty Python and like really like snobby black British comedy, like it's just funny to me to be like, right, and one of my favorite figures in comedy is the most slapsticky moron in the history of television. It's funny to me to watch like an episode of Black Books and be like, oh, this is really funny because they're making like comments about literature and this is actually very entertaining, and they'd be like, he said dope.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why, but it's just like the funniest thing on the planet to me.
I mean, I get that too. It's like, I have a child who grew up watching a lot of British comedy. You end up watching Blackadder, Red Dwarf, stuff like that, and it's like, even those shows though, it's like they'll have like some sort of witty comment to make about society and life and all that, but they'll also just make like a sort of a dough kind of joke in those shows too. Yeah, they're not above poop and fart jokes.
Yeah, and The Simpsons has always been thought to be consistently smarter than it actually is. I mean, there's an actual line of reasoning that there's actually a line of logic, and I want to say actual like philosophical discussion about how The Simpsons ruined the prospect of nuclear energy in the United States. No, I'm serious.
No,
like, that's an actual sociological argument, is that because the Simpsons' popularity and everyone as their engineers being thought of as morons,
they say
like ruined nuclear power as a concept for the U.S.
I mean, they say you are what you eat, but there's also a concept that you believe what you watch most often.
Yeah, and the Simpsons were being watched that much during the 90s, and people had just experienced 3 Mile Island.
Yeah.
You probably believe a lot of those people are morons. All right,
Fair.
So now the actual point of this entire retrospective, which is the actual agree to disagree episode.
Yes. If you stuck around this long, thank you for putting up with our random rambling, ramble-bunctious.
Fuck it, I'll take it. All right, so the actual agree to disagree episode is that, well, not actual, I mean the next one is going to be the reason we did this retrospective, which is that John and I disagree on the Simpsons movie.
Yes, I think that movie is a pile of hot garbage.
And I enjoy the crap out of it.
So I think we're going to follow it up as a secondary one-shot. We're not going to do the...
Yeah, I don't think there's...
We're going to boil into one episode.
There's no reason to, like, do an entire setup.
Yeah. All right. So, if you're listening and you want to follow along, go ahead and watch the Simpsons movie and then listen to me rant about how garbage it is.
Yeah, but also, seriously, people watch The Simpsons. Actually, that was going to be my last question before we go into the final thing.
Yeah.
If you were to give one episode to all of our viewers that go watch this episode and then you will understand how funny The Simpsons is. Like, if you were to give one episode as a, like, gateway of watch this and you will understand why this show is considered the funniest, most important thing put on American television, what would it be?
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know what? I'm going to go with one of the episodes from the newest season just because I think that it was a real standout episode. It was Moho. Yeah. Mr. Burns makes a wager with an old childhood friend. Mo ends up opening up a swanky club.
Oh,
and
God.
Homer and Marge's marriage almost falls apart.
Okay. I just realized, is that a Pygmalion joke? Is that a My Fair Lady thing?
No, it's not My Fair Lady so much as it is. It's supposed to be like, it's a shortened version of like Mo House or something like that, like Mo's Tavern.
I was gonna say because Pygmalion was also an episode as a complete play on words of Pygmalion.
No, this Mr. Burns and his old childhood friend, they make a wager. They wager their fortunes that they could break up the Simpsons. Mr. Burns says, "No, that's never going to happen." And the guy's like,
so dark.
And his friend, who's this dark British guy, he's like, "Love is there's no such thing as true love," and all that. It's a great episode.
Oh my God. I would actually say it would probably go in, I think it was in one of my emotional episodes, but I didn't end up using it. I would say oh man, I want to choose this one, but it's an internal
This is your question, man.
I know, but I don't think anyone will get this is the thing. Part of me really wants to just say Marge versus the Monorail, because that episode's just absolutely hilarious beat to beat, regardless of what you know about the show. And it's so iconic to what The Simpsons is as an entire series that it's just one of the funniest things on the face of the planet. I'm actually going to go with the cop-out answer. I'm going to say that. I'm going to say Marge versus the Monorail.
Okay.
Go watch Marge versus the Monorail if you want to understand what me and John have been ranting about for damn near an hour now.
Yeah. If you want to enjoy The Simpsons, I highly recommend either of the episodes that we mentioned. In fact, any of the episodes that we mentioned.
Yeah, seriously.
They're all great examples of this show at its best.
Agreed. All right.
So we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.